And I said those who can give, there's no compulsion.
And then sometimes, you know, we also know that land also deal with political control. These are matters that are attached. When you talk about Kogi State offering land, you have to ask, was it the people of Kogi or was it just the governor taking a decision on behalf of his people?
The land use act vests all land in
very true.
Yeah.
It does vest all land, but then even government realizes that there are lands that have belonged to families for years.
Yes,
and they give
that's why there will be negotiation.
Yes, so they give those concessions. So when the governor of Kogi State came out to say, you know, we have land for you, there'll be questions as to, you know, who did you talk to? Yes, we elected you, but then you must also still seek, you know, to talk to the people. But your comment also about, you know, violence being unleashed on Kogi in the aftermath of that also raises questions. Would you say that I mean, are there people within the country who are not willing to give land and do not want others to give land?
But that is clear.
If that is the case,
it is clear.
Doesn't it trail back to the first question as to what security operatives are doing?
No.
And intelligence. If indeed somebody will say, this is what I've said, and then, you know, violence is unleashed on the people who are supposed to be given the land, doesn't it raise questions?
It also raises the issue that there are some people who don't want this matter to be resolved. They don't want it to be resolved. So whenever anything that seems like a possible solution comes, they kick against it up to the extent of violence and killing.
Just quickly now,
yes, let
me quickly insert this. This is from the outgoing French envoy who says that he doesn't. Did you see that statement?
I read it. We were
he doesn't believe that
but
foreigners are involved in Nigeria's killings, and he says that it's a result of impunity and injustice. There are the major factors driving the killings and bloodshed in Plateau, Benue, Kaduna, and other parts of the country. This is what
I read it. We were out. I read it online. But the outgoing French envoy will not know our country better than us.
Oh, he talked about
whatever he says,
the killings is a struggle for land.
Oh, it's his opinion. It's his opinion.
You don't think it's a struggle
part
for
of
land?
it. It's a part of it, but that's not the totality. That's not the totality. He's a Frenchman. He has possibly lived there maximum 3-4 years.
You know that this was also said in the UK House of Lords. I mean,
they will not sit in the UK House of Lords and then know Nigeria better than us.
But the question is, what precisely is the government telling the people? Because we have heard our president say, this is being done by foreigners. We heard him, you know,
an aspect of it.
Okay, that's a quote from the outgoing French envoy. The reason for the killings is demography. Some people are fighting for land, so there might be direct policy to developing agriculture and animal husbandry. I think impunity is encouraging the killings, and those responsible must be punished. He says he doesn't believe that foreigners are involved in the killings.
That's his opinion. He has a right to it.
He said in a response, this is about the claims by the federal government that Libyan mercenaries were responsible for the bloodshed. And this, you know, in recent times, President Muhammadu Buhari did meet with President Macron of France, and they talked about, I think security was one of the things on their plate, and they talked about collaborations on that particular. So for the French envoy to say that he doesn't believe that this is about, you know, mercenaries coming into the country, and that it's more about justice and impunity, doesn't it say something?
The French envoy has a right to his opinion. It doesn't make what he has said gospel. He can know our country more than us. But the thing is a brew. You can't take a small part of a brew and say this. No, these killings, particularly the ones that have to do with farmers and herdsmen, is multiple. It's multiple. You have criminality in it. You have politics in it. You have influx of foreigners in it. It's a brew. You can't just take one item and say, this is it. No.
Mr. Adesina, even if there is a kind of a consensus around, you know, the idea that there are multiple strands involved with the violence we see in the country, issues, I mean, real concerns have been raised about the reaction of government. And I'm not just talking about ensuring security and making sure, you know, security agencies are in the right place, etc. But even in terms of the messaging to the people, you know, some people have said, look, why is it that when the previous administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan wanted to establish ranches, released massive money to do so, that's right, 100 billion to do so, that back from any of the traditional leaders in the Middle Belt, etc., political leaders, etc., but now there is. Some people have said that the difference can be attributed to the fact that we have a president who has built a security team largely comprised of officials from the same part of the country. Mm-hmm. Now, is there any credibility to that? And if not, what do you think that difference in reaction to the grazing, to the ranch policy is attributed to?
What you didn't add is that we also have a president who is Fulani.
Right.
You know, a lot of people say because he's Fulani, that's why he's overlooking what the Fulanis are doing, which is very unkind. Very, very unkind. Evil-minded people are the ones pushing that narrative. Ajuri, you asked me a question. Let me answer.
Go ahead.
Under President Jonathan, 100 billion was released, and the intention was to build ranches in some parts of the country. We don't know what happened to that money. We have not seen the ranches, and nobody kicked. Now, the fact that they are kicking so violently now shows that there's politics in it. Politics. I tell you, there are people who are interested in these issues not being resolved.
Even if one was to agree with that idea that there is politics involved and interests involved in it not being resolved,